Naveed Razi for MMA Weighin here with Jon Anik. And Jon, it's been a crazy few years in MMA, yourself formerly with ESPN, now jumping over to the UFC. Before we get into all of this craziness, talk a little bit about the transition from ESPN to the UFC.
You know, it was crazy. It was an opportunity that I was so thankful came along, but candidly, you know, I had to make a lot of adjustments. You know, for 6 years I worked for a network and absolutely loved what I did. Now I'm working for the promoter, you know, so it's a little bit of a different animal. There's a certain vision that they want executed. So that was really the biggest adjustment for me, but I just wanted to get back to doing live events. You know, I spent a lot of time in the studio and I still love doing the studio stuff, but I felt like I shined more doing live events. And I think for a lot of us in the industry, there's just nothing like doing play-by-play and nothing like being in the belly of the beast and feeding off the energy of the crowd in the arena. So it's been a wild ride, man, and you know, it's hard to believe we've already done about 16 or 18 shows and plenty more next year.
Speaking of doing that, you did the play-by-play in the last time filling in for Goldie. Do you know if you'll be doing the next pay-per-view, or has word not come out yet if Goldie will be back in it?
Your guess is as good as mine, but you know, I think like anything in life, you just want to be ready when opportunities present themselves, and hopefully, you know, the masses thought I was ready for UFC 155. I certainly felt prepared for that opportunity, and you know, I hope Goldie returns to health, but you know, it's also an opportunity that I hope comes around again. You know, I really enjoyed working with Joe Rogan and certainly hope to get the chance to do so again.
Speaking of that, get into Cain Velasquez versus Junior Dos Santos. Obviously, the first time around, things ended very quickly. Junior Dos Santos landing that huge punch in under 60 seconds, finishing Cain Velasquez. This time, a complete 180. Cain Velasquez dominating Junior Dos Santos. How surprised were you guys going into the fight that that's the way the fight broke down?
You know, I think a lot of us were surprised to see either one of them put it on the other for 25 minutes and not get the finish. But I think a lot of us put Cain Velasquez on a pedestal when he first entered the UFC, and rightfully so. I mean, this is a guy who a lot of us thought had the stuff of legends, and I thought what he did at UFC 155 really was a legendary performance. I think he's a guy who sets such a furious pace that few heavyweights are going to be able to keep up with it. And I think the recipe or the elixir to beat Cain Velasquez, you got to get him out early. You really do, because if you go into the championship rounds, I think he's going to have your number. I think both guys are special fighters. I think we're destined to see a trilogy, if not 4 or 5 fights between them. But Cain Velasquez is a guy I've never picked against, and I think you saw why at UFC 155. Really a special, talented fighter.
Well, it's a pleasure to see you in the UFC. I think the UFC made a genius move bringing you in from ESPN, and the best of luck.
Thanks, man. That means a lot. I appreciate it.